Hey everybody, welcome to this channel named The Range Rankings, and you are currently watching Not a Ranking. During Act 3 of Silksong, Hornet must acquire the everbloom from her own memory, and to be able to do so, she must first get 3 old hearts from powerful beings of Farloom, Crust King Khan, Scar Singer Karmelita, and Nyleth. But as you probably already know, if you free the Green Prince during Act 2, when this quest rolls around in Act 3, you can fight him for his heart, making one of the encounters optional, giving you the choice of leaving one of the old rulers alone, with no need to fight them for their heart. And that got me thinking, what is the most moral choice here? Who should you spare? And here's the thing, most people, including myself, will be violent degenerates and choose to fight all 4 bosses, because we want the memento, and also because it is more fun that way. But what if we weren't like that? If we wanted to make the most moral choice in this game, which 3 bosses should we fight for their heart? And which one should we leave alone? And I'm going to pretend like there isn't an obvious answer here, so I can still make this video. To answer this moral conundrum, let's go over each case, giving an overview of the boss's story and lore, and then seeing the arguments for and against killing each boss. Also, all of these bosses have the argument in favor of killing them that you'll use their hearts to save Farloom. I just thought to mention it here, so I don't have to say it each time. Keep that in mind. Part 1. The Fraud. Crust King Khan was the ruler of the Caracas, a tribe of coral warriors fiercely loyal to him. He was tyrannical, and his rule was very much a survival of the strongest type of thing. His army was disciplined and structured, with rigid ranks and a clear battle formation based on the training of each warrior bug. For example, the Caraca warriors were the frontline infantry, these little assholes function as ranged soldiers, and so on. This led to his kingdom spanning over half of Farloom, with the Coral River being its center, all before the Citadel arrived. By the time the Citadel rose to prominence, Khan and his armies were the ones to hold out the longest, but eventually they fell as the rest. During the events of the game, the once vast river is gone, replaced by the wasteland that is the sands of Karak. At its top, we find the Coral Tower, and in there, we see Khan's and his army's corpses, long gone and dried out. There, Hornet must enter his memory, fight through his army, and then slay Khan for the encrusted heart. With his case presented, let's look at the arguments for and against fighting Khan and taking his heart. I have 4 arguments in favor. For the first argument in favor, I consider how awful and cruel Khan and his ruling seem to be. Despite being the last one to resist Grandmother Silk and the Citadel, he was kind of terrible, and the achievement for beating him is literally called Tyrant. We don't know that many details about his rule, which will be a common theme for this video. Sorry. But Hornet comments on how it probably was harsh for more peaceful bugs. His rule also doesn't seem like it was one for a lot of innovation or progress in other matters either. By traversing the ruins of the sands of Karak, we don't find any evidence of any type of construction or anything of that sort, with the exception of the Coral Tower, unlike what we see in the first Hollow Knight with the ruins of Hollow Nest. It could possibly be that it all faded away, but the Coral Tower still stands, so it leads me to believe that his kingdom was one where the military reaped all of the rewards, with no benefits for its subjects. Beyond actually resisting the pale light of Grandmother Silk and the power of the Citadel, King Khan seems to just have been another authoritarian asshole. My second argument in favor is that neither him nor his people are alive anymore, so you're not actually killing anyone in the mortal world. I guess at most you are still killing their spirit that still live on in their memory, but that hardly seems like murder to me. They are already dead. My third point is that unlike some of the other ancient rulers, as we'll see later, Khan's existence or that of his memory doesn't seem to be holding anything alive in the physical world. The sands of Karak already are a desolate shithole, and there's no evidence pointing to the fact that it would turn into an even bigger shithole if we take his heart, so destroying his memory hardly seems like it's going to make it worse. And for my fourth argument in favor of killing him, he hides behind 4 gauntlets of multiple waves of enemies, so he deserves getting smacked. Okay, no, this one isn't really a moral argument, forget it. Now for the arguments against fighting Khan. We have to consider, okay, yeah, I have nothing. There really doesn't seem to be any moral reason not to fight Khan and take his heart except pure pacifism. But considering that it is something we have to do to save Lace and Farloom, there is no reason not to do it. I guess after you exit the memory his corpse disintegrates, and that is kind of rude. That is literally all I got. Okay, let's move on to our next powerful being. Part 2. The Big Flower. Unlike Khan, Nyleth isn't so much a ruler, but rather a force of nature, the heart of Shellwood, the once lush forest of Farloom. It was thanks to her that the vegetation and animals of Shellwood were able to grow, making it a beautiful and safe place in its prime. By the time the Citadel rose to prominence, realizing that she was the heart of the forest and that she could make it safe for pilgrims to cross it, they reluctantly decided to make a deal with Nyleth. They left her alone, built a shrine in her honor, and appointed Seth to be the eternal ruler of it. In that sense, Nyleth is the only being I'll talk about in this video that seemed to be able to coexist with the Citadel. At a certain point, Nyleth died for some unknown reason, allowing for Sister Splinter and her kind to take over Shellwood, making it hostile and dangerous, which is what we see in-game. By Act 3, to meet with Nyleth, we must fight Seth, who doesn't allow us to pass otherwise, reach the shrine, and then enter her memory, where after slaying her, we get the Pollen Heart. With her case presented, let's look at the arguments for and against fighting Nyleth and taking her heart. This time around, I only have two arguments in favor. My first argument is that once again, she doesn't seem to exist in the physical realm. She only seems to exist as a memory, so you're not actually murdering someone. The second argument is that you get to free Seth from his eternal duty as a Shrine Guardian. When you fight Seth, you don't actually kill him, and after beating Nyleth, you can find Seth in different places of Farloom. His memory of him being a guardian seems to be gone, but not his abilities, and eventually he makes his way to Fleetopia, where he joins the Fleas and becomes part of their family. And for this one, yes, you have to fight Nyleth. If you only fight Shrine Guardian Seth, he won't appear later in other places of Farloom. Now, this point could be contested whether it's a good thing or not, because on one hand, he lost his memories, and who knows, maybe he was happy being the eternal Shrine Guardian. But here's the thing, and there's some speculation on my part, but from the lore, it seems that his role was imposed on him, and even though he does seem fine doing it, he himself does say, "I am the last bound to protect it. Sadly, in that service, many have fallen to my blade." There is some lament to his task at the very least. And even if he is okay with his duty, I still think that him having no choice is unfair and immoral. Beyond that, I also believe that the life he gets afterwards with the Fleas makes him much happier. It is a life that we can be fully sure he chose. He stumbled upon the Flea Caravan and consciously decided to stay with them. In my view, freeing Seth is an argument in favor for fighting Nyleth. A life for a life, if you will. Let's now look at the arguments against fighting Nyleth. I've only got one argument against fighting her, but it is a big one, though I'll admit it has a lot of speculation. Again, Nyleth was the heart of Shellwood, and the whole reason that the ecosystem even exists. Now, once again, this is some speculation, but even while only being a memory, she seems to be the one keeping Shellwood alive, at least partly. So if by killing her and taking her heart, even if she now only exists as a memory, it is possible that we are doing the whole forest and every being that lives there, both flora and fauna. And I know that can sound like a tempting thing, especially when you are trying to do the Courier Thrasher and get hit by a fucking Bondskipper, but yes, destroying a whole ecosystem is a bad thing. Let's continue with the third old being of this video. Part 3. The Flamenco Ant. Scar singer Karmelita was the most powerful warrior of the Scars, and through her singing, she was able to unify them and give them the necessary strength to resist Grandmother Silk's haunting. Her tribe was one of hunters, with their domain being the Farfields and Hunter's March. They are a tight colony, with a couple of exceptions being the exile model Scars, which I'll talk about in one of the arguments. The Scar are extremely loyal and aligned to Karmelita, both militarily and culturally, since they follow her not only for her strength, but also for her singing, which gave them a common culture to admire and be a part of. It was this same song that allowed the Scar to resist Grandmother Silk's haunting, since they were able to hear and focus on Karmelita, bypassing the Silk whispering. However, as she grew older, the strength of her song faded, and the Scar slowly succumbed to the haunting, confusing its whispering for Karmelita's singing. When Hornet meets Karmelita, she still is alive, but she is old and weak, having been forgotten by her people. We fight her in her prime, by accessing her memory, and after beating her, we receive the Hunter's Heart, killing her in the process. With her case presented, let's look at the arguments for and against fighting Karmelita and taking her heart. I have 3 arguments in favor, though I'm not gonna lie people, they are not great. This one is really hard to justify. But for my first argument, I present that she seems willing to give you her strength if you are able to beat her. She seems to want her people saved, and if getting her heart is necessary, she is willing to make that sacrifice. Let's ignore for now that you can simply get the other hearts and leave her be, so it's not really necessary to fight her. I know that is like the whole point of this video, but I'm trying to make any argument in favor of killing her. Secondly, Karmelita is very old and seems really tired. She has been forgotten by her people, despite everything she did for them. You could argue that this is somewhat of a mercy killing, giving her a warrior's end while reminding her of her prime, instead of leaving her to rot of old age, forgotten and abandoned. This one is kind of a reach though, but it is the best I got. And you know what? For a third argument, let's include Hornet's insane reasoning for fighting her even after she got the everbloom. You know, she just needed to get stronger so she could actually save Farloom. It wasn't enough for her to go to the gym and lift some weights. No. Only murder can give you the strength necessary to save the world. Hornet, what the hell is wrong with you? Okay, now let's look at the arguments against fighting her. First off, unlike the previous two beings I've talked about so far, Karmelita is actually alive, in the physical world, not just in a memory, and it's not like she's possessed by the haunting or anything. She is very much in control of her mind and body, even if they are weak with age. My second argument is that despite being weak and old, Karmelita's strength still seems to protect her people, even if not as much as in the past. To quote the conversation between Gilly and Hornet, was it her? Could it be the strength that sustained these caves? If so, what will happen now? They will wither and fade. No, in time, these caves may see the opportunity to regrow, flourish even, though that rebirth is itself a task enormous, longer than a lifetime, many lifetimes. That's fun, so we destroyed the whole of Farfield's and Hunter's March by killing Karmelita. I know that seems enticing after the first playthrough trauma of having to pogo off of these shitty red flowers, but again, destroying whole ecosystems is an immoral thing to do. And third, this argument is a bit speculative, but I feel like Karmelita's rule was relatively fair, at least compared to other rules we see in this universe. The Scar are territorial and aggressive, but they mostly went after prey that wasn't sentient. All the bugs they hunt in Farfields don't seem to have elevated minds like the Pilgrims or the bugs of Hallownest, being closer to animals rather than people. It seems like it was a tribe that followed her out of their own accord, and unlike the Caracas, there's no evidence pointing to them ruthlessly ruling over other bugs. There seems to be only one stain in the image of the tribe, and that is the model Scars. But that is only a maybe. Let me explain. In-game, we meet three model Scars, the shopkeeper, this little guy, and Gur the outcast. Beyond being modeled, what they all have in common is that they were all exiled from their tribe, and they are hunted down by the other ants. And there's a couple of possible explanations for this. The first one is outright racism. They have white models, so the other ants want to kill them. This is certainly a bad thing, and it means Karmelita promotes systemic racism, which, yeah, not good, of course. But I don't think this is the case, because another explanation for their exile is that they were marked for perceived crimes against the tribe, more specifically against the queen. Let's start off with the shopkeeper. This is the most speculative out of the three, but based on his needling dialogue which states, "the last loyal, loved," we could think he attempted to have or had a romantic relationship with Karmelita, which was prohibited. In regards to this little guy, I think his crime is more straightforward. From him, we received the corpse sickle, a weapon only brandished by Karmelita herself. This leads me to believe he stole it from her, a clear crime in Scar society. And thirdly, we have Gur. Gur was a particularly brutal hunter, and I think his crime is very clear. He killed one of the royal ant guards, leading to his exile. This second explanation for the model Scars at least shows us there was some sense of justice during Karmelita's rule. Sure, it was really harsh justice, but there's sense to it beyond tyrannical rule. And the third possible explanation for the exile and hunting of the model Scars is that they seem to not be affected by the hunting, and they still seem to be able to recognize Karmelita's voice among the silk whispering. So when the other Scars hunt them, it's because they are led by the hunting, and the model Scars actually are the last ants loyal to Karmelita. This tangent is basically to say that the only aspect that truly looks bad about Karmelita's rule could be explained by a more fair reason than pure racism. But yeah, if it is racism, that shit is fact, and can be justified, obviously. Finally, let's explore the case of the extra boss fight, the Green Prince, Part 4, the gay one. Out of the 4 characters this video is covering, this is the one we know the most about, so I'll try to keep it brief. The Green Prince, alongside his lover, was the ruler of Verdania, a green and lush kingdom that, unlike some of the others I've discussed, seemed much more peaceful and uninterested in expansion. Having been born at the same time, they were instantly intertwined, and after hunting down the Pale Stag, they became the rulers of Verdania, as their people thought it their divine right after accomplishing such a feat. Eventually, the Citadel came knocking, and in an attempt to save their kingdom, the Green Prince lover designed 2 clockwork dancers for the Citadel, but it wasn't enough for them, taking his soul and splitting it into the 2 automatons. Afterwards, the Green Prince was locked up in Sinner's Roads, and with time, Verdania decayed, though I'm unsure if it was by direct action of the Citadel or by the lack of guidance and rulers, or by a mix of both. In present day, Hornet frees the Green Prince, who later finds the truth about his lover and the Cogward dancers. Eventually, he makes his way into the ruins of Verdania, now empty desolate caves. In there, Hornet enters his memory, seeing Verdania in its lush prime. After learning its history and reaching the Green Prince's throne room, he decides to attack, enraged by her intrusion. When defeated, the Green Prince dies both in the memory and in real life, and Hornet gets the conjoined heart. With his case presented, let's look at the arguments for and against fighting the Green Prince. I have two arguments in favor. First off, with this one I can more confidently say that you could count this as a mercy killing. The Green Prince had lost everything, his lands, his partner, and honestly the will to live, which is clear from the moment we meet him. He wasn't going to be able to move on from what he had lost, so in killing him we grant him some peace. That being said, I still think from a moral standpoint this argument is very flimsy, because even though you can argue that death is peace for him, he never asks you directly to end his life, and murder is murder after all. But considering we have to fight 3 of the old rulers, better to kill the one who may welcome death's peace. Secondly, unlike Nyleth and Karmelita, and similar to Khan, the Green Prince wasn't actually sustaining an ecosystem, or a group of people, or anything like that by simply existing. Sure, it is only in his memory that Verdania lives on, but on a practical sense, Verdania is completely gone in the physical world, and the Green Prince being dead or alive isn't going to change that. And now for the arguments against fighting the Green Prince, I also have two. Similar to Karmelita, this character is actually alive, not only in a memory. Again, you can argue that his death was mercy in a way. But you know what else would have been mercy? Helping him find purpose in life again. And that leads me to my second argument, which is more about potential more so than actual fact. By killing the Green Prince, we not only take his opportunity and a new life, but we also take away someone who could have held the bags of Farlum. He is a natural leader, and he could have helped the people of Farlum rebuild after you saved it from the void and Grandmother Silk. And unlike Karmelita, he was still young and capable. He still had his entire life ahead of him, and he could be key in reconstructing Farlum and getting rid of the horrible influence of the Citadel. I think this last point rings particularly true given what we know of his rule. Out of the ones I've talked about in this video, his kingdom seemed the most peaceful and in balance with nature and its people, while still being capable of fighting and defending itself, like we see with some of the warriors of Verdania and of course the princes themselves. If he rose as a leader in a new Farlum, he would be a strong one, but it also wouldn't be replacing one tyrannical leader for another. And thirdly, he is very gay and killing him is a hate crime. Okay, no, that argument is a joke. I mean, he is gay, but Hornet kills him for non-hate crime reasons, so it's not really a valid point. With this last case presented, let's get into the last part of the video. Part 5. The 5th part. Now that we have actually seen each case, taking into consideration all of the arguments in favor and against battling each boss, who should you spare to make the most moral decision in this situation? It's Karmelita. Of course it's Karmelita. But before I explain why, let me actually rank these fights from the most moral to the least moral. Number 4 is Khan. He sucked and was tyrannical while alive, and he is providing no good to anybody in the current physical world. And he literally isn't alive anymore, so you can even use the argument that all murder is wrong because life is precious. There is no real downside to getting his heart. Number 3 is Nyleth. I originally put this one at number 2, but the fact is that the main argument against killing her is speculation. If she does actually sustain Shellwood, even while only existing as a memory, that would be a huge reason not to take her heart, but we don't have any way of being sure, so for now she stays at number 3. Her not being alive and her fight being necessary to free Seth from his imposed service and give him a new, better life end up being more relevant as arguments than any speculation about her current power over the sustain of Shellwood. Number 2 is the Green Prince. The main reason I ended up putting him over Nyleth is that even though his death could be argued to be mercy, he was actually alive after all. And even though I went into a rant about it, the argument about his potential role in Farlum's reconstruction isn't that relevant, since it is a speculation on my part, and there's no assurance he would actually do good for the backs of Farlum. If that was the case, I think it could be reasonable to put him at number 1, but for now, he stays in 2nd place. And again, the most moral choice here is obviously sparing Karmelita. Her death brings the worst consequences into the world, and unlike Nyleth, we have in-game confirmation that even in her old age, her power was sustaining Hunter's March and Farfields. And also, she was actually alive, she didn't really want to die, even if she could accept it as necessary, but once again, the whole point of this video is that one of these fights isn't necessary. Part 6. Conclusion. Oh shit, why did I say part 5 was the last part? It wasn't. So yes, to me it is very clear that the most moral decision is to skip the fight against Scar singer Karmelita, and leaving her heart intact is the best thing to do. But with all of this discussion over, what even is the point of this video? Does it really matter what is the most moral choice here? After all, it is only a video game, and it's not even one that's trying to make you feel bad about killing the enemies and bosses you encounter, or even trying to make you think about the morality of the choices you make. But more importantly, am I ever going to skip fighting Scar singer Karmelita? Absolutely not! If Team Cherry didn't want me fighting Karmelita because that's the most moral choice to make, they wouldn't have made such an incredible boss fight, and a banger of a music theme. This shit goes so hard, absolute peak of a boss fight. Okay, that's it. Let me know in the comments which murder is the least acceptable one to commit. Also, be sure to tell me if I got anything wrong, or if I missed any relevant bit of information. I tried to be thorough as possible and speculate as little as I could, but it's very possible that I missed some important facts. If you like this crap, I have other Silksong and Hollow Knight videos, so go watch those. They are pretty cool. And even the ones that aren't about this franchise are pretty good. I promise, please subscribe. Goodbye everybody. Have a nice day.